with the security measures of any school in MMSD, and then that will may give you your answer.
One very quick follow-up. As you know, there has been some criticism to other law departments in their response to these school shooting incidents, particularly involving. How did that inform your game plan today, and how quickly were your officers able to get into the school? What were they told to do?
Sure. We train on this, as I spoke about earlier. When officers arrive on the scene, they immediately go in, which we did in this case. Stop the threat, stop the killing, find the killer. That's how we train. And that's exactly what we did today. There's no waiting. There's no coordination of who's in charge. Everyone knows exactly what to do. I spoke about this earlier. We train on this constantly. Our commanders, including the fire chief and I, was in a commander's training less than 2 weeks ago, going over this exact same scenario for another fictional location. And so all of that came into play today, and our officers performed extremely well based on their training and based on the expectations that they know exactly what to do. Stop the threat, stop the killing, find the threat.
Right. Can we just do one more? For the current student. Hold on, right here.
Thank you,
Hello.
all.
Yeah.
I think the questions have been asked, and we're straying a little far from what's most important at this point in time, and that is the victims and their families. I have 3 things to add. First of all, there is a lot that our community can and will do in the coming days to support the victims and their families, and we will have more information at future briefings. If anyone, and I would urge you all to include this in your stories, if anyone needs mental health support as a result of this incident and the coverage of it, I encourage them to reach out to 988 by phone or text and to get the mental health support that they need. It is incredibly important that we take care of our community in this very difficult time. We all have a role in preventing gun violence. Our entire community needs to be part of the solution here. There are many things that we can do, and we can have those conversations in coming days. But first and foremost, what needs to be the priority for all of us is supporting our young people. And that is where our community's attention needs to turn at this point in time. The police department, the fire department, the city, the county will share additional information about the investigation as it becomes available. But I urge you all to help our community find resources to support their mental health and to find resources to support the victims and families at this time. Thank you all.
Where can people go to see your updates? What can we tell them to do?
It'll be at cityofmadison.com. Me, Stephanie, and Cynthia will stick around and answer any other questions. But that's all.
Let me say just before I go, because the mayor mentioned that this was a whole of government response. It certainly was, and there's so many people that we want to thank. We cannot thank everyone, but it's also a whole of law enforcement response. Even though we are in different agencies, we all have the same training. And so I want to thank our partners with the FBI who are here with me today, partners with the ATF, Dane County Emergency Management. Of course, we already talked about our fire department. We've got calls from the Attorney General of the United States, Wisconsin State Patrol, our governor's office, State Patrol, Monona, as well as our sheriff's office. I know I may have left someone out, but thank you for how you responded professionally, quickly, and according to the way that we all trained, and it all came together to ensure that no other persons were hurt. Thank you.
Chief, could you just say what time you guys made entry? Just want to nail that detail down.
10:57.
But that doesn't have to be
Hi, everyone. We've been listening together to Madison, Wisconsin Police Chief Sean Barnes. The mayor of Madison is also there. We've heard from her and other officials. They've been providing an update on a tragic situation that unfolded this morning when a gunman opened fire inside a school. 3 people are, as of this hour, dead. That includes the shooter. 6 people were injured and then transported to area hospitals. Police say their injuries range from minor to life-threatening. The shooter is a teenager and a student at the school, which is a small private Christian school with fewer than 400 students. Those students range from kindergartners to 12th graders. The shooting taking place just days before a scheduled Christmas holiday break. At this hour, police say they are combing through the area for any evidence or anything really that could provide some information on exactly what happened and why. But they do not believe that there is an ongoing threat to the public at this time. Police say that they do not know the shooter's motive. It's where we start today with former Assistant Director for Counterintelligence at the FBI, senior MSNBC National Security and Intelligence Analyst Frank Figliuzzi's back. Here with me at the table, NBC News National Law Enforcement and Intelligence Correspondent Tom Winter's back, and Democratic strategist and professor at Columbia University, MSNBC political analyst Basil Smykel's back. Tom Winter, what do we know?
So a couple of details from that press conference, some of which are new, which is the fact that the shooter allegedly used a handgun in the commission of this crime today. We're looking at 2 individuals at the school. We don't know yet with certainty, and I apologize. We had a little bit of a cutoff in the top of the press conference, so maybe the chief addressed it, but at least 2 individuals at the school are deceased, a number that are injured, ranging from minor injuries to life-threatening injuries. Don't know yet if those are students or teachers that were involved. As far as the individual that is responsible for the shooting, also identified as a juvenile who attends that school. Now, what we don't know, this school goes from kindergarten to 12th grade. We don't know the age. That's a huge spread, obviously, but we don't know the age. We don't yet have a motive. That's not surprising. We're less than 6 hours or so into this, and so we wouldn't necessarily have that information at this stage unless they had some sort of writing or made a statement prior to this. The chief said something I think interesting. They're going to wait for the medical examiner to make a determination, but he pointed out that when officers went in the school, the shooter was already deceased. So obviously this happened ahead of time. There's only 2 potential outcomes there. Is that this was a self-inflicted gunshot wound or that somebody else there had a gun, but I think he would have said so if that was the case. Taking a step back here, having covered I don't know how many school shootings, I'm not going to do the math, covering the Newtown school shooting, which is occurred 12 years ago plus 2 days, the impact on this community, whether the shooting happens in February, June, September, or December, just a week or so before Christmas, it's always going to be traumatic. But the way it impacts around the holidays, these families and these kids, is very, very difficult. And that community will go through a very difficult time in the next couple of weeks. And so it was refreshing to see as strong and clear and detailed the information that we had from that police chief. It was nice to hear them kind of bring it back towards the victims and the families at the end, because that is very important. And having done this early in my career, all the focus all the time on the suspect, who did it, why did they do it, what was going on. And over the years, in speaking with these groups and speaking with victims groups, that is such a huge component, and that's the everlasting component of it. And so it's kind of changed my approach a little bit, and that's why the reason I mention it here today. But again, still need to determine how the weapon was obtained, who this kid was, the motive behind it, and then figure out if anybody else is going to face charges, though there's been no indication that to date that anybody else is involved in this.
It's such an interesting point that you make, and I'm so changed by Fred Guttenberg and his daughter Jamie, and Fred's service in doing, I mean, you arrived at what you're describing, sort of a victim-focused lens through which you view these by covering so many of them. I have sat here while Uvalde was unfolding, while Parkland was unfolding, but I think with all of Fred's admonitions in mind, lives were changed of the victims' families forever.
Right.
I mean, forever. December 16th will mean something different to these families forever. And coming 2 days after the anniversary of Newtown, I believe the 12-year anniversary
Correct.
of Newtown, is beyond haunting.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in that particular shooting, the Connecticut State Police did something I think now that's been mirrored across the country, which is to essentially assign a trooper to a family, which is something that I think worked out beyond anybody's wildest imagination from a standpoint of providing some connection to for these families to the investigation. There were never going to be answers that, you know, made anybody feel better about what happened at Newtown, that's for sure. And the same with this particular investigation here today. But having those type of connections and the FBI there and what they can offer from a victim services standpoint will be incredibly helpful, because they will deal with this tonight, tomorrow, every single day for the rest of their lives, because it involves their children. So it's definitely a difficult situation for these families. And I think once people start to, we all have justifiable anger that something like this could occur. But I think when you start to shift your focus a little bit to the families and the victims, your aperture for the entire event changes a little bit. And so that's something that, you know, it's interesting that it's going back to that. There's a lot of research, a lot of studying that occurs in this field along those lines. And it's something that I think we'll hear more about in the years to come, because it's research that's being listened to by law enforcement and frankly starting to be listened to by reporters like myself. There's also research that is occurring, and I've heard presentations on this, about what we're seeing with juveniles in this country. Yep. So in the teenagers, you know, 10, 11, 12-year-old range, there is not the United States, but another country, an ally of ours, where most of their counterterrorism cases involve kids in the mid-teens right now. You know, we're talking about 14, 15, 16 years old. Think about that. I mean, back when there were so many terrorism cases following 9/11, even pre-9/11, and since then, most of those cases involved young males in their early 20s. Now we're talking about situations where we're talking about kids that are in their teens. So why are we seeing this downward shift? What are the factors that are at play? And as I've heard a number of people in law enforcement say, so I'm forgetting now who to properly attribute this to, but you know, back in the day when I was a kid, when you were a kid, you went to your room, you were by yourself. Yeah. Now you're never by yourself. Now you're with the phone. You're with the entire rest of the world, and what's coming through that phone and what are you ingesting, again, speaks to the broader trend of these types of incidents. What exactly happened here today? We need an investigation to figure out.
Frank, I think a lot of Americans feel like no research will ever provide an adequate data point for how this is possible in the United States of America and how this could ever become so frequent that Tom and I both have a frame of reference for past school shootings. Your thoughts on our inability or refusal as a society to make this never happen again?
Yeah, like Tom, I've lost track of the number of times over the course of the last 7 years on this network that I've covered school shootings and mass shootings generally. Look, we seem unable to address the issues in any meaningful way. Whether you want to say it's all about mental health, great. What have you done about it? If you're a governor or a senator that says, oh, it's all about mental health, good. Show me what you've done to really make a difference there, particularly for young people. If you say, no, it's all about securing the school better, we need more armed people at schools, we need more guns in schools. Okay, show me where that's actually worked, really, repeatedly, to be a substantive trend. Show me that, because